Today I'm going to film a video on how to make a concrete step like the one you see right now. This is 20 inches in diameter. I couldn't find anything with the size and the look that I wanted at any of the local Lowe's, Home Depot, any of the garden stores. I couldn't find what I wanted, so I made it myself. Um, so I have right here a little mixing bin. I'm going to use some high strength concrete as a base, and then I'm going to use mortar mix as a topping to get the texture and the look that I want. And I have the quick read die right here that I'm going to use. The mixing buckets, gloves, uh, assorted trowels here. I have a patching trowel and two smoothing trowels, and then my knee pads are over there somewhere because I'm going to be kneeling in this marble rock here and working. So the only other thing I'm going to add is I'm going to add a couple of buckets of Portland cement to the mix. The mix that you buy from the store tends to be a little skimpy on Portland cement, so I'm going to add some extra Portland. So this is the bag of Portland cement that I've been using. It's a Titan brand. I think it came from Lowe's. It's a 90-pound bag, so I'm not going to lift the whole thing because I only need a couple of small containers. I usually add about 32 ounces to half a bag of either concrete or mortar mix just to give it a little extra strength. And I love to use these little yogurt containers. They hold up really well, and they're 32-ounce containers, so I know about what I'm putting in. It doesn't have to be too precise. I had the chance to meet one of the concrete artists from Disney. Amazing guys, done work all over the world: Japan, China, Dubai. He's one of the guys who worked on the Tree of Life at Disney's Animal Kingdom. And I was asking him. He has concrete art all over his property, and I was kind of asking him what kind of mix he used, and I thought he was going to tell me to get lost because he didn't want to tell me his trade secrets. But his secret is that he's just extremely talented. The concrete has nothing to do with it. So he said he uses Quikrete, Sacrete, whatever's available. But the only thing he says was that he will add a little bit of extra Portland cement because it makes it easier for him to work. So that was pretty good advice. I thought I'd pass that on. And this is the form that I've been using to make these steps. It's 1/16 inch plywood. This came from Lowe's, and I ripped it with a circular saw. The depth is just whatever you want it to be. I think this is 4 inches. You can make it as deep as you want your step to be. This material is extremely easy to work with. I cut it with a circular saw, but you can easily score this and snap it with a utility knife. It's very easy to work with. To get it into a circle, I just kind of I wet it with a garden hose and let it sit in the sun for a few minutes, and just kind of gently worked it into a circle. It's not perfect, but what is. This has held up really well for being such a thin material and working with concrete. And I mean, you can see it's well used. It's really held up very well. I've done 6 of these steps already, and I mean, this is still holding together. So, um, whatever your diameter you want to be, just the formula is 2 pi r. So I wanted this one to be 20. So 2 times 3.14159.265 times 10 inches. It worked out to be somewhere around 62 inches, and then I left a little lip here so I could hold it together. I just used a couple of T-bolts, these little fasteners here, 1/4 inch with a little 1/4 inch screw and some washers to keep it together. And these are also really easy to loosen when I'm done with the form, so I can take it apart. So, I mean, just very, very simple. And the great thing about this material being so thin is in the sandy soil here in Florida, it's really easy to level because this material will cut right into the sand, so you can level it very easily. Okay, so I've cleared the little circle that I'm going to use and pulled most of the weeds. I'm just going to work this in. 2x4, cheap little level. I don't care if it gets busted up or not. Okay. And level. And level. So if you're working in a place with rockier soil, you'll have to clear the rocks and clay and whatever out of the way. And you'll probably have to put down some sand to help level it. But the soil here in Florida is pretty much just straight up sand, so you don't really have to worry about doing that. So, okay, got the form in place, and I don't want this to sit quite this high, so I'm going to work it down a little bit and get this a little bit lower. Okay. So I have the height where I want it to be. Let me check again to make sure it's level. Yes. And now that needs to go down just a little bit more. That's got it. Okay. So, and then I'm going to have to take this extra material out of here. Went ahead and put on the gloves because I'm going to start mixing concrete soon. These are Harbor Freight gloves, and I usually wear a medium. Harbor Freight gloves apparently tend to run a little small, so I think next time I'm going to need a large. So just good gloves. They're 9mm. They really hold up well with concrete work, but they're just a little small. Okay, so I've removed all the material that I need. I'm just going to hose this down. To get it relatively level and just to kind of clean off the edges of the mold so that I get a nice smooth finish when I start putting in the concrete and mortar mix. I'm not worried about getting this part of it too level because once I finish the concrete it'll smooth itself out. So the base is a little lumpy underneath. It doesn't really matter at this point. Okay. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and fill in this bucket. Okay. So because these are smaller steps and it's pretty warm and sunny today, I'm just going to mix these in small batches. So I'm using about 1/4 of a bag at a time so it doesn't harden on me. The instructions on the bag say 6 pints of water per 80-ounce bag. So that's 1.5 pints per quarter bag. So this is just 1/2 liter. Okay. Just gonna add that in. Just enough to get a firm consistency. And I'm gonna start mixing that. I use a bigger tub for the high strength concrete mix because it's a little harder to mix with the aggregate. Make sure that's fully absorbed. And then I'll just add a little bit of water as needed. You need just enough water to activate the Portland cement. You don't want to get it too wet because that will weaken the concrete. Not that these need to be super strong, they're just little steps for the garden. But, you know, if you're going to do something, you might as well do it right. So let me go ahead and mix that. Okay, so the concrete mix is done. I've started filling the form, and I'm only going to fill the form at the bottom and then up around the sides. I'm going to leave a border around the edge here because I want to have a smooth finish. That's what I'm going to use the mortar mix for. And just kind of, as I put it in, I'll just kind of pack it down a little bit. And I'm just kind of making a dome in the middle here to give the mortar mix a place to go and fill in. And you can use a 2x4 to just kind of pack it down a little bit. But this is how it should look. It should look sandy and just kind of sticking together. When you pat it down, it should hold together. Okay, so this is pretty much what you want for the base of it. I'm just kind of pushing this down around the edges. Make sure that it's nice and firm. And I'm going to leave this dome in the middle. And when we put in the mortar mix, we'll be able to get a nice smooth finish like this right here. So let that sit and go put the mortar mix together. The mortar mix, I'm using half of the bag. Mortar mix takes a little bit more water. It's 3.5 liters for a full 60-pound bag, or 1.75 for half a bag. And this is the color that I'm going to be using. I've played around with other colors in the past. I like this one. It's easy. It's a liquid. It just mixes a little bit more easily. And you can add up to a full bottle of this per 60-pound bag. They advise against using more than a full bottle for 60 pounds. So this is a quarter. So it says here, one bottle will color 2 80-pound bags. So I'm just going to use about 1/4 of this bottle. That should give me the color that I need. I'll use my trowel to puncture the seal. Okay. And I'm just going to squeeze out. Okay. And add that to the water and mix it into the mortar. Okay, so that's more than enough. It gives it a nice, I like that kind of earthy yellow tone. Just gonna add that in there. I'm not gonna add the whole thing at once. I'm just gonna mix it in. Wow, that was great. Okay, well, I didn't use the full amount of water, so add a little bit more. Until I get the consistency that I want. Just, it shouldn't be like soup. It should be like a nice firm mixture. For small batches, these little mixing tubs work great because you can really get a good, you can really disperse the water and get it in mixed really well. Okay, let's make sure I don't see any more. I'll just use the rest of that. That should cover it pretty well. Okay, and this is probably still a little dry, but when I go into the finishing process, I'm going to add more water to smooth it out. I'll just start adding the mortar mix to the top of the concrete mix, pushing it in, smoothing it out. Could have done a better job mixing this, but I'll just fix that before we get it. And I'm going to use this. Make sure I don't get that tube built up in the middle. And just get it all the way out to the edge. Again, it's really surprising how well this little 1/16th piece of plywood holds up. You can really kind of put it through some abuse without it falling apart. And just add this in until you get it level. Just an old piece of scrap 2x4 that I used to pack that down and get more. Okay. So I just keep the hose handy. Sometimes I'll use a spray bottle, but I'm just going to use a little, just to lightly wet the surface. I said when I was mixing the mortar, I didn't put the full amount of water in, so I could leave myself some wiggle room here. Okay, got that pretty smooth. And it gives the surface a nice sandy texture. Okay, this is a little trick that I use. This is a piece of jute rope. I'm just going to use this to create a line in the mortar. I'm going to use the trowel. Just going to lightly wet the trowel to help it to glide a little bit. And again, just lightly wet the surface of the concrete. And just push the rope down into this. Gives a nice organic looking line. That mimics a natural seam between two pieces of stone. Okay, now because I want this to look natural, I'm going to just my hand and pound a few little knots into it, and then just kind of smooth that over with the trowel so you get those little indentations. Mimic the look of like erosion. I'm going to pull that up. And I'm just going to lay it. I feel a little bit like Bob Ross when I do this. Just where's this line going to live? Try to make your pavers look like happy little pavers. Think about all the lizards that'll climb across them, and all the bugs that'll live underneath them. That little line right there. Okay, I'm just going to take this and make sure that I'm not getting too much of a dome in the middle. And the more you can work this, the more it looks natural, because it looks like erosion might have possibly taken place at one point in time. I'll take this smaller trowel and just kind of get around the edges here. Okay, and then I'm going to take this. I'm just going to make a little crack here. I really am going into Bob Ross mode here. Okay. Just going to wet my fingertips a little bit, and I'm going to use my fingertip to smooth out around some of these edges here. Kind of give it a softer edge. Look a little bit more natural. All right. And just take a little mist of water and just drop it over the edge of this. Soften up some of those indentations that I knocked in there. Okay, that looks good. Now it's going to have a very light, earthy color when it dries. It's going to be a little different than the one next to it, which is kind of what I wanted. I didn't want them to all look identical. I wanted it to mimic something natural. So the one next to it's a little more pinkish. I wanted this one to be a little bit more earthy. The finishing touch is just to add some black or charcoal color into the seams. So I have a little flux brush that I use for that, and I have the charcoal, the same Quikrete color. That's a liquid also. Just going to add just a little bit of this. And dilute it with just a little water. I want that to be pretty solid color, so I'm not going to dilute it as much as the rest of it. And I'm going to take that and work that into the little creases that I created with the jute rope. And just painting it in there. I'm trying to get actually into the concrete material to make sure that it stays in the concrete and not just sits on the surface. And you'll have to periodically just kind of wet the brush, just to make sure that it goes in and settles down into the concrete material, into the mortar mix. And just kind of brush that along. And get to the edge, you can feather it out a little bit. Get it right here. Kind of taper that in there and make it look hopefully a little more natural. Out here at the edges, I'm just going to kind of round that in. Okay, now that I've got the main color in, I'm going to dilute that a little bit more just so it's like black water. I don't want it to be the original. When I was first putting it in there, it was more like a gel. Now it's more watery. And okay. I'm going to take some of that more diluted mixture and put it down in these little dimples that I put here. And I'm really going to work that and kind of blend it in a little bit so it doesn't look like I just plunked black paint down in there. And just kind of stipple around the edges. And, take that in. I'm going to cite Bob Ross again. We don't make mistakes; they're just happy little accidents. So that's actually what I wanted, and I'll show you why in a second. So again, when I mixed the mortar mix, I didn't add as much water as I could have, so I could do things like this. Just a little stream of water. Most of the time I'll use a spray bottle for this because it gives me so much more control. Okay. Got that. And so I'm just trying to work this black pigment into that seam there, and then like around here I'm going to blend it out a little bit. Again, just kind of stippling the brush. And I just want this to look natural, like it's been weathered and possible erosion has taken place. And a nice sandstone kind of look to it. And I'm just going to put some in there, and there's enough water in there that it will, as it dries, kind of blend in. It'll look much nicer. Okay. All right, and I'm just going to wash this brush off a little bit, get some of the black off of there, and do a little bit more blending in some of these areas. Don't want anything too dramatic. All right, I'm going to take the trowel and just go back over that really, just very, very lightly. And then let me just fix that seam right there. Okay, and I'm just chasing some of the water out of here so it doesn't sit. I don't know if you can hear my kids playing video games inside. They're being really loud. Okay. And I think that's got it. When it's dry, the color changes won't be as dramatic. I'm going to go ahead and feather this out just a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that looks much better. Okay. It's been about 45 minutes. So it's had some time to cure, and you get an idea of what it's going to look like. The color variations are much more subtle. I'm losing daylight here, so sorry that the shadow's kind of blocking it. I'm trying to get a better angle here. Not great. Anyway, this is pretty much what it will look like when it's completely cured. It's going to take about probably 24 to 48 hours for it to fully cure all the way through, but the surface will look like this, especially when it's wet, like after a rainstorm. It'll be that color, but when it's dry, it'll be a much more subtle earth tone. But it came out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to do another one right over here. And I took some of the extra concrete and some of the leftover that I had in the bucket here, and I made this little stone. I'm going to do a border along here as well, and I will do a little tutorial on that as well. So thanks guys for watching. Hope this was helpful. If you liked, click like. If you want to see more of this, please subscribe. Have a great day. Thanks.